Well, ladies, I am so excited that we're here today. And I know I say that every week. Sherry, please take it away today.
Well, you may have noticed that today we have a new joining us, and it's my privilege to introduce you to Annie Goudreau, who is a nutritionist and a women's health coach. And Annie founded a company that's called Vive, V-E-E-V, which is an acronym, I'm sure. And it's about health and wellness to support the needs of smart and successful women at midlife, giving them the confidence to do what they want to do with the energy that they need. She is an endurance athlete. Get this, 12 marathons, whoa, and 3 Ironman triathlons under her belt. So Annie is a beast, and she obviously lives what she preaches. He's also a regular speaker to the media, to corporations, and for lifestyle organizations on all sorts of various topics of health. So, Annie, welcome to Unapologetic Women Share. You are our first guest. And the first question that I want to ask you, and I think this will get us really started because it's very pertinent that you are focused on menopause, that time of life when here we are, and I think we're all in that time frame. We're all boomers, I'm pretty sure by the looks of us. And that could be traditionally when women kind of struggle with who they are, their identity. They're not raising kids at that point, typically. So it could be a time when women kind of feel, like, who am I and what's next? So tell us about that. Tell us about why did you choose menopause as a time, that time frame to work with women, and why is it such a great opportunity for women to really step into something even bigger than they've known?
I love this question because we live in a very youth obsessed world. And
Mhm.
when I went back to school, I was in my 40s myself. And imagine this, I was in a classroom and everybody was about 22.5 years old. And so I was totally the old lady in the room. And I was doing this, of course, as I wanted to renew, and pursue a new career. And at that point, I had never made any assumptions as to who I was going to be serving afterwards. I just thought I'll get my degree and I'll see how it goes. But it's during that time that I think that the universe, thought, hey, we're going to play a little joke on Annie here. We're going to throw her with 22-year-olds.
There you
And
go.
then around me, because here I am at that time, I did not realize, but I was myself perimenopausal. My friends were also going through that. And suddenly the wheels were starting to fall off for many of us. Right? There was cancer, there were starting to be some issues. And it was very interesting because what we're being taught, a lot of focus on youth, a lot of focus on fertility, a lot of focus on motherhood, all good things, but very little around aging and how can we support. Now, I was looking around and I was thinking, it's not in our 20s and our 30s that for most of us the issues are. It's when we start to get a little bit older and years of stress and so on. So it's during that time that I thought this is an opportunity. And there is so little information out there. And, a lot of people were still kind of going, oh my God, it's the change. Right? There was still so much stigma around menopause. I thought, this is unacceptable. This is not a disease. This is just a natural
Right.
fact of life. So little did I know that years later, Sherry, that I discovered not only is it a time of change and we need to support women in that time of change, but how it is by far one of the most critical, opportune time
Mhm.
for us to define how we want to live for what is, believe it or not, on average, the next 33 years.
Love
That's
it.
the average that women have to live after natural menopause.
And Annie, how do you see that as being for women to be unapologetic in that mind frame? I'll say that mind frame.
I think our 20s is all about proving ourselves, right? Proving ourselves also, showing our parents, see, I got my degree and I'm out there and I'm working hard and maybe, I got a partner and perhaps I'm starting a family. And a lot of us are doing what we think is expected part of society, right? Depending on where we live, we're like, well, this is what people are doing. I'm going to be doing that. And then there's a bit of a time of reckoning at midlife where often the children have left the nest, or you're hoping that they have, right?
Mhm.
And we now have time to focus on ourselves. This is the time to be unapologetic because we're no longer asking permission. Hey, mom and dad, are you happy with what I'm doing? Or trying to care for everybody, which is a lot of the emotional burden that women take on in our society. So this is the time to be like, actually, I don't care what Susie and Johnny and the neighbors think. This is how I want to go forward.
I love that.
I think something that you said is really important because it's not just about looking for validation from parents and peers, but it's also about looking for validation from your children. Because I think, let's face it, anyone who's parented knows that parenting doesn't come with a handbook. And if you're anything like me, you're like, I'm going to be a way better mom than my mom was to me. And then, it's like reality hits and you're like, well, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. And, there comes a point when whether the kids are still living at home or they leave the house, it's about really stepping into that unapologetic mindset for I did what I did, knowing what I knew, and let's see where it goes from here.
Yeah.
I think what your work is really important, Annie, because what I've noticed in the women that I've worked with is that when women get to that point where everyone's left, they've been groomed to take care of everybody else. They've forgotten what they want to do, and their meaning in their life comes from them servicing everyone. Not serving, but servicing everyone. And everyone expects us, oh, the free babysitter. Oh, well, when's dinner ready? And, oh, my mom will do it because she'll do it for free. We don't have to pay anyone, all of that. And I think women are so capable. They're the largest unpaid workforce in the world, in my opinion. And they're so capable of running things and being creative and working together. I think that this is a force of nature. And I think what you're saying is absolutely, they shouldn't apologizing for wanting their lives back.
Yes.
Okay, so
there's an interesting relationship also between being unapologetic at this stage and being authentic, right? Because that's what we're really talking about. Right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I can actually pursue this idea. I can actually pursue these hobbies. I can actually be the way that I want, right? And I think that's the ultimate, like, feeling free, being liberated.
I love this point you're bringing up because I hadn't thought about it, of this being a time of freedom. And when you were speaking and talking about historically what happens, for women in their 20s and 30s, it occurs to me, okay, so, your 20s, I mean, it's a natural thing. Women go into whatever they've gone to school or some sort of training, and then there's a financial need to pay back, to make good of the investment that they've made. And then there's also this very real thing called the biological clock. So if women do intend to be mothers, then there is some time pressure that is real to some, probably not as much as our medical community makes it. Because actually, as a doula, I had a client who had her first baby at 51. Unusual, but not impossible, right? So, the culture is that there's this biological clock. So there's all of these things that are put on women in those young ages. And you get to this point here where you're like, okay, I've done those things. I've checked those boxes. And now, maybe what's left for me is to discover who I am. So
yes.
Yeah, I
think
love
that's
that
a
you're
good
working
point,
with women
Sherry.
with that concept. That's really exciting.
And something that came up for me, Sherry, when you were saying that was, we should never have to apologize for wanting to step into that next phase, opportunity, however you want to look at it, because it's a natural progression, right? That we keep expanding in whatever. You get a job, you're like, oh my God, this is the best. I never will want for anything in my life again. And then you're like, yeah, but maybe I'd like that corner office, or maybe I'd like a different job, or, we're always expanding. And, something you just said, Sherry, was really hit home for me, because it's about not apologizing for that next phase we want to step into.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So Annie, here's another question for you. And boy, you're certainly qualified to answer this. Although I'm sure that there are listeners going, I can't do one marathon, let alone 12. And what is an Ironman? It sounds really hard, or it sounds really big. I know what an Ironman is because I've been in that world, but I've never done one. So, but menopause, midlife is a time when a lot of women, start feeling their aches and pains and so forth of a little bit of aging. And I mean, I have worked with wellness myself for the last 35 years. So, and it's just very common to talk about. I mean, I get together with my friends that are in their 60s, and one is actually 70, and we start talking about, they more than me because I'm all about natural and they're not so much. But, we talk about what's bothering us physically and so forth. So how do you teach women, maybe somewhere between aching and can't get off the couch and doing 12 marathons, somewhere in there, there's a whole continuum, right? So how do you teach women to start taking better care of their health? And how do you inspire them to do that? Because I think that's a big part of it too, is if you feel good, you feel more empowered.
Yes. Well, there's a little bit of the stars are aligned a little bit at midlife, because in that reckoning, in that opportunity when, it's knocking on the door and it's saying, hey, Sherry, there's a little bit of an opportunity for you here, and this is what it's going to require. You are so much more in tune with yourself in that moment, as opposed to being, in tune with everybody else that is around. So there is an opportunity also, as the body, when we feel things, it's basically the body's way to communicate with us, right? It's symptomology, right? This is the language of the body, is to go, hey, I'm gonna make sure that Annie is feeling something. That's a message. Hey, I need some attention, right? Just like a child, a little baby who cannot speak yet cries, that's its way of telling you, I need something, figure it out now. It's the same thing with the body. So often what I end up doing when I work with women is putting them in touch with their own bodies and saying, okay, right, there's a few things that your body is telling us. This is a call to action, right? This is a call for help. And now it's up to you, of course, to take that first step. It doesn't require an Ironman, I promise. It doesn't require at all a marathon. But this is the only shell we'll ever get. Right? And I think that we take it for granted as long as it works in our world. But the reality is that we need to take good care of it, right? Just like you take good care of your things and, your home, your car, and, assets. This is a time for taking care of this beautiful thing called your body, because it houses everything. So I invite people to be in touch with what is going on now. And often, our reaction is, oh my God, I'm having a knee pain, or I'm having some hip issues, Annie, and I'm just getting old. And that's unfortunately doing disservice to what's happening. Right? What's happening is, the call to action is, oh, you have neglected me, Annie. You have neglected me, and now I need some love, right? And that love requires movement.
Yeah.
It requires us making sure that, we are really optimizing. So often the inspiration, it's your own self. It's what you want to do with your life, right? You hear people say, I'm going to have grandkids, and You know, it's like, well, we all know what little kids are about. You're going to need a heck of a lot of energy if you're going to keep up with grandkids, right? If
Right.
you're going to be working at a book, if you want to be traveling to the other side of the world and do some community work, everything is going to require your body supporting all those efforts,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So I just put you back in touch with what you need to do so that you get to thrive in whatever area that you're going to be aiming for.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's
I
really
love that.
important to remember that everything is energy, including our bodies, and energy needs to move. So if we've gotten to a point where we are in midlife and whatever that means, mentally or physically, spiritually for someone, but when you get to that point, it's like, are you continuing to move? Are you moving the energy? Because when something's showing up in the body proper, the vessel that we are, it's an indication like, okay, is there emotional work to be done? Because emotions are energy in motion in the body. So when you think about being unapologetic, sometimes that's the time where women, maybe they're like in their 50s, and that's when they actually start looking at all the secrets that they've kept their whole life, or all the things that they didn't ask for, or all the things they didn't think they deserved. And because of that, once they really accept that, you know what, I can ask for this unapologetically. I can be healthy, I can be wealthy, I can be popular, I can be, quiet and stay at home in the garden and not talk to anybody. I can do whatever I want to do, but ultimately I'm in charge of me. And we can't do that if we're not mobile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's uh physical and, as you said, emotional. I think so much of it comes up with our mindset, our self-talk, using visualization. I think that is so important because which
Yes.
really ties into this whole mindset of being unapologetic, of feeling empowered. I think that's where you start. Would you agree that that's, if you haven't been somebody that's been super active and feeling confident in this new time frame, that's a good place to start, is start envisioning what do you want? What's really
Yeah.
possible? What do you think about that, Udana?
Well, I think this is really important because normally women have been working so hard for everyone else to self-care and actually exercise or something, but our bodies pump. We have a heart that pumps the blood through our body. Our lymph system is what gets rid of all of the junk, and that doesn't have a pump. The only thing that the lymph system has is exercise. And that's how we get the junk out of the body. And, we certainly wouldn't let our cars go for more than 3,000 hours, 3,000 miles without replacing the oil filter or the oil,
Right.
So, but we don't do that because our bodies are self-healing. Oh, we'll fix itself. But the idea, I think it's really important what you're saying, Annie, is that women get to start taking care of themselves and sharing from the overflow rather than going down to the last drop, sitting out in the garden and reading a book. Okay, you take care of it. How many women know how to do that? You're doing it. You're doing it right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, it often comes down to we got to put women in driver's seats of their life. And this, when we are in this stage of life, unapologetic, which I love that word. I think I'm going to start to use it every day. But also we need to be in a driver's seat, of our health. And so that we can influence, our good mental health, our emotional health. I love
Yeah.
that you brought that up, Nancy. It's all about, we got to be in the driver's seat. A lot of us in the conversation, and these are the big myths of aging, that, oh, well, it's normal that I'm feeling this way because of aging. And this is where I call BS. It's like, that's not true. That's a myth, right? You've created this. You need to get back in the driver's seat and take care of this and take care of yourself and this beautiful shell that you have.
Yeah.
Right. When we see generations older than us and what they've gone through, and then we create some type of belief in our mind that says, oh, when I get to that point, I'm going to start going downhill. Well, that's a belief. And, again, that's the energy that you're putting forth in your body. Who says that we have to, I don't want to say like take medicine, but obviously you need to check with the people that you need to check with. But what I'm saying is there's nothing set in stone, and we can
Yes.
be whatever we want to be. We can do whatever we want to do. And if you want to get up in the morning and do push-ups, great. If you want to get up in the morning and not do push-ups, that's great too. The important thing is knowing you have a choice. And if you don't think you can, why do you not think you can?
Mhm.
It's always like looking at the mindset. Why do you believe what you believe?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
So,
love what you said about women in the driver's seat, because
yeah.
we're so used to being the support system and the support system. Women get to run the world. It'd be a whole different world. So I love that. But I'm sitting to interrupt you. Women in the driver's seat. Yes,
Yeah.
honey, this is how you treat me. Okay.
Yeah. Well, that speaks on so many levels of
Yes.
being in the driver's seat of your life. And again, I go back to, because I love visualizations. I think they are so powerful when we can quiet ourselves and imagine, okay, we don't have all that constant day to day of young kids, and maybe even that, as demanding a job, or at least having to prove ourselves in our job, right? I was in a store a couple of days ago and somebody said, I'm going to give you a wisdom, promotion code. And I like that. I mean, he was really looking at my age and going, yeah, you're a senior. But I like that because it is about wisdom, right? I'm like, yeah, I walked away thinking, yeah, I deserve that. I've earned that wisdom in my life. So tell us, like,
Yes.
what is the track for how we can really embrace this? Do you have any things that you want to add to this conversation, Annie?
Well, I want to share, more importantly, I think, to build on what you've said here, how, we often think about, oh, nutrition, movement, and all these things are really, really important. But there was a study done by an American sociologist, and I'm a total nerd, so I'm always following these types of studies. But this woman wanted to know how actually what we believe, and we just talked about this whole, what's in our head and how it influences the outcomes, what we believe about aging, and also it links to belief about menopause and that transition.
Mm-hmm.
But that if you had positive beliefs about aging, that it added almost 8 years to your life.
Wow.
Yeah.
And like this is finally measured 8 years, like it's almost a full decade. For women, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, how important is this that we know that this is so powerful, which then leads me to always encourage everyone to surround yourself with people who have the similar values as you, but are talking about projects and ideas, and the problem solving, the creativity, right? Regardless, there are a million beautiful things to do in this world and accomplish, and we all have a role to play, because this is what you're going to be absorbing. And this is also going to be nourishing your heart. It's going to be nourishing your brain. That's going to help you in what is ultimately, life is a marathon, right? It's an endurance sport.
Right.
And we need to know these things, that how incredibly powerful they are and how they influence our life.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I know we're coming kind of towards the end of this conversation. I wanted to reach out. I'll start with you. What would you say is a takeaway, an aha from this conversation with Annie?
Well, I
What
think
have
she
you
just
learned?
said it. First of all, getting into the driver's seat rather than the reactor seat, and rather
Yeah.
than, as Dr. Gabor Mate says, women are the stress absorbers. No, get into the driver's seat, but also what you said about celebrating our age and our freedom and our good health and our eros, our energy, our focus, instead of like apologize it. Is it okay? Is that okay if I'm this old? And now how do I fit in? Bull, you know what? You know, you just did something, you blew my head off a little bit here, you know, so thank you, thank you, thank you. It's really important.
Yeah. How about you, Nancy? Thanks,
You know,
Uganda. How about you, Nancy? What would you say you learned from this conversation?
one of the things that really jumped out at me was the language of the body, because when someone is really in tune with their body, meaning, are you sitting like this all the time? Well, this is a really low energy, posture.
Mhm.
How are you living in your body? That is really important, because it's not just aches and pains. What is your body telling you? It's also how you choose to be in your body that you're learning something.
Mhm. Mhm.
Oh my
Right.
God, that's amazing.
And,
Wow.
and I have to say from this, my aha is really embracing this whole menopause midlife, because I have to admit, I had, a negative thinking about menopause, the whole hot flashes. And I think I had bought in a little bit. I mean, I feel like I'm 65. I feel like the next 30 years are going to be my most prosperous and my most creative years. And I am one of those that is stepping into being a grandmother very soon and lots of things. So I've got a lot to do. So I love what you said about that study and adding 8 years. And so I think it's really important. I have a vision board. I've made many over the years, and I'm going to start putting women that are, because I love seeing this when you see women who are white hair, right? And they're active and they look like they are taking life, by the teeth and running with it. So I think it's really important to overpower that old mindset that I think we got taught I mean, us as grandmothers in this generation are not the grandmothers of our parents' years. It's different. We expect to be vibrant, right? We expect to
Yeah.
keep living in a big way.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
expect to keep astounding my children and my grandchildren and my great grandchildren. I'm a great grandmother, and I'm like,
Amazing.
I am just in my prime, man. I am just getting going. And they're like, Grammy, you keep doing this and this. Heck yeah, man. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm out there leading, not waiting for someone to drag me along.
Yeah,
Right.
and also women really influence and create ripple effects by their action and how their ways of being. And what you were just talking about, Nancy, is your ways of being is now going to have such a profound positive influence on, boys and girls that are coming up in the next generation, and they will see aging in such much positive
Mhm.
out, vision. So I find that that's wonderful. That makes me so happy.
Yeah, we are being the change we want to see. No pun intended, being the change. Or maybe we can think of it that way, the change. Yeah, that's a good, spin it, give it a positive. The change is like, yeah, I'm being the change. That's amazing.
It's
And I
got,
will say that I, for one, have not experienced any of the horrors that people talk about when they talk about midlife, menopause, blah, 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 blah. And I know that has a great deal to do with mindset.
Yeah.
Yes,
I think it's all
huge.
about that. Yeah.
mine was so long ago, I don't even remember it.
Yeah, it means it,
I
you know
had a
what?
couple of hot flashes. What's that? And
There's no such thing as the past anyway, right?
you're
It's
right. It's
really
like,
living in the
what was that?
now.
I remember when that used to happen.
Yeah, it's just about how do
Oh
you feel
I'm
right now? Right
free.
now, right
I'm
now, I love my
free.
life. Exactly. We are amazing.
I'm not gonna get pregnant. I get to have as much
yeah. Yeah,
sex.
right.
Yeah,
Go
right.
crazy.
Exactly. Woo!
Yeah, we're at the best time ever.
It's
Wow. Annie, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a great conversation. Is there any last thing that you'd like to leave us with this whole collaboration?
I think that I just want to make the observation that, you just put four women together here and look how powerful the conversation is. And anybody that is listening, please create your own beautiful circles where you get to be fully expressed. And even if you're a little tentative about those next steps, that these are people going to be cheering for you. And what's on the other side is just amazing.
Absolutely.
Love it.
And leave comments. You're watching the video, leave comments. Let us know what you're thinking. If you have questions, we will definitely answer your questions. If you want to be part of this conversation, let us know, because that's what this is all about. We are just getting started unapologetically sharing this information.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank
Annie.
you. Yeah, that was
Thank you. Thank you.
So fun.
Thank you, Annie, for being here. And ladies, I appreciate you being here as well.